Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got 3 replays in the Western Alliance Premium Era 3 medium tank, the M60 Action 10 or the M60AX. It's basically an M60 in Era 3 with lots of spaced armour splashed all over it. So it's got lots of spaced armour on the turret, which makes the turret pretty decent, although in my experience it's pretty decent against the lower Era 3 tanks and those with like less than 500 or less than 600 pen. But as soon as you're going against people with like 600 plus pen, like yourself, you get destroyed. And generally, the armour on it is the type that is extremely troll, but not infallible. So it tends to get penned a hell of a lot. Armour tends to go as well, which is a little bit annoying for it. But it can ricochet shots here and there. It can ricochet weird shells as well. Shells that you think, oh, I'm going to get penned. This guy's going to butcher me. And then you just bounce shots. And you go, oh, okay, fair enough. And that's off of the upper plate and the lower plate. And you just sit there going, that guy should have penned me really easily. I don't understand. And off the turret, it's more understandable when you bounce things. But off the hull armour, it's like, wait, I bounced that? Okay, whatever you say, sir. The one thing it has got, as with a lot of things in Era 3, to be fair, and a lot of tanks in Era 3, generally, is that the gun is absolutely fabulous. This gun is fantastic. It's got a great rate of fire at 4.4 seconds, and the accuracy on it's fantastic. Just make it as good as possible, because that is what the tank is good for. You just want to make it excel at its gun handling, generally. It can be a pretty beautiful thing. You got 493 or 494 pen on the standard rounds, with like 583 on the premium. So at the era, for the most part, you're going to pen most things you're going to face with your choice of round, essentially, because the Russian tanks you will butcher with the premium 583 pen, and the other pen, the other standard round is good enough for most of the tanks when you're flanking and getting shots in people's sides and things like that. It's just you need to switch to the premium rounds to compensate for distance, for the drop in pen, and like I say, for depending on the tank you face. If you're facing like the Russian tanks, you can just switch to the premium and butcher them up as well. And if you see yourself, you can shoot yourself in the face with the premium APCR and go through the turret as well. It is what it is. It's got 72 km/h top speed as well, which is really good. It shifts about pretty quickly compared to a lot of the other M60 variants, although most of the M60s obviously, well, all the M60s are at Era 2. It shifts about really quickly. And I say the armour is decent but not great. You shouldn't rely on it. And yeah, the 480 Alpha is a little bit low for the era, but with the 4.4 second reload, it's pretty dirty and quite nice. And yeah, it's a decent tank. It makes a hell of a lot of money. But is it worth picking up over picking up some of the Era 2 tanks that also make up a hell of a lot of money and you can actually feel consistently competitive in them? No, not a chance. Honestly, I don't think you should pick this tank up for competitive sake, because there's a lot of games where you just sit there going, well, I just get battered about by every single tank, because every other tank has way better armor than me, has way better guns, DPM, mobility, just they do everything so much better. I may make a ton of credits, but yeah, it's a struggle in quite a few games to play this tank. As soon as you become the focus of an enemy team and enemy players, this tank just tends to get destroyed really quickly, and it's really frustrating for that. So in terms of a crew on this tank, I run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Track Mechanic, and Rapid Aim. Rapid Aim to make the turret traverse just a little bit nicer, to be able to keep up with my track traverse and with the speed and all that sort of stuff. The gun handling perks, again, to make sure that the gun handling is as good as possible, because that is the thing for the tank. You want it to excel at that, so that you can, you know, hit pretty much every shot you're going to take and get the snapshots in, the shots on the move, all that sort of stuff. And then, yeah, in terms of equipment, run rammer, vert stabs, and optics. Again, vert stabs just to make the gun as good as humanly possible, the rammer to make my DPM even better, and the vents, sorry, instead of optics, the vents to make the DPM and the whole tank as a whole better in itself. If you wanted to, you could, I mean, the gun handling is fantastic, so if you wanted to, really, you could drop the vert stabs and put on a traction system to get yourself up to, like, I think it's 78 kilometers an hour instead of 72. No, maths. 79 kilometers an hour it would be that you could get yourself up to. So you could go absolutely rapid in this tank. And I suppose that is something you might want to do, so that you don't get outrun by every tank in this era, because like tanks like that, for example, that's just charging towards us, the BU, which we've instantly switched to premium for, will outrun you. And yeah, they have the type of gun that will completely wreck your armor, no problem, and you will still bounce off of them, although 583 pen is enough to get through their upper plate, so it is what it is. So yeah, it's down to you how you set it up. Like I say, you can get the traction system, go absolutely rapid. You could keep the vert stab to make sure that your gun handling is as filthy as humanly possible. You could do whatever you want. So in this first replay, we have managed to get 9k damage so far. There's only 3 enemy tanks left, 4k assistance as well. And we're just being looked at by an M1A2. And it's like, I don't really want to be doing that, because this guy could quite easily kill me. I'm only at 577 hit points, so I've just got to take a slightly different approach. The heavy tank has come up behind him, so we managed to get some shots into the back of this M1A2. Now he's turned to face him. We're going for that rear drive wheel to try and track him in place so we can get more assistance and get damage. This is exactly what we've done, and we finish him off. And by tracking him as well, we kept him sideways on for our ally to be able to shut him down. We switched to premium because it is a BU that's left, but he's hiding behind the rocks, so unfortunately we're not going to get the shot to finish this guy off, because unless he drives out and gives us the perfect side shot, one of my teammates is going to get there, and as that medium tank is going round, yeah, the likelihood of that is not very likely at all. So yeah, the M60AX is one of those that I kind of want to like, but I feel like I'm just not competitive compared to most of the M1A2s, Leopard 2A5s, all that sort of stuff, where they just sit in front of you and you go, what do I do? Anyway, we finished with the Ace Tanker, the 1860 base XP, 15k combined, 10,000 damage, 5,000 assistance. I always feel like 10,000 damage as well at Era 3 it's alright, obviously, but 3 M1A2s makes 12k HP. So if you take out 3 of those, you got 12k damage, and there's 15 tanks, right? There's a lot of tanks that have around that 4k mark HP. So obviously, like, 10k is not quite the best for the era, but it's pretty good for this tank, to be honest, because this tank, let's say, does struggle in the face of just things like the Leopard 2. The Leopard 2A5 absolutely craps all over it, but there's a lot of tanks like that, to be fair. And because they have guns that are as good as this tank, and they have armour that is way better than this tank, and mobility that's pretty much the same as this tank, because that's what Era 3 is. Era 3 is pretty much all the tanks have that 70 km/h top speed, or 60 km/h, 50 km. But you know, they're all hyper mobile, they're all hyper accurate, all have hyper DPM. It's just not a fun era for me, to be honest. I don't enjoy the era whatsoever, but it is what it is. I feel like I would rather pick, if I was going to spend money, I would rather pick an Era 2 premium up and then feel competitive in every game that I'm going to play, as opposed to just seeing the tank and going, well, what am I going to do? If especially with Era 3, the way it goes, Era 3 tends to have a lot of people that go, oh, a tank, and they will just slam RB and just chase you, and they will focus only you until you're dead, and that happens a lot. And if someone does that in a Leopard 2A5, 2A4, T72BU, BM, one of the Chinese tanks, the M1A2 and M1A1, you are dead, because you're not really going to do much to them, because they will out DPM you, they will pen you reliably every single time, whereas you've got to make sure you hit the right spot to pen them. Sure, you make fantastic credits if you have a good game, but you've got to have the good game and have the consistency right, and it can be frustrating in that way. So we're on the second game, and we're on Pearl River, and Pearl River Assault as well, which is this weird-ass variant that is horrific to play for either team, really, because it completely depends on how your team plays as to whether anything goes well. And so far, we're at 4.6k damage, with a bit of assistance. We're less than 2 minutes into the game so far, and we are trying our best to back up our team, because again, being this tank with the armor it has, you don't want to be the focal point of an assault. You want to be helping as much as possible. The problem with attacking this area on Pearl River, with the amount of people that we've got here, it can be a bit of a cluster duck, as yeah, there's so many people vying to keep pulling back and pulling forward. But look, fortunately for us, a lot of our team have gone in. So while they're playing distraction, we're essentially pumping as many. We're just using the DPM that this tank has to keep pumping shots in. And as you see, as soon as the tank goes in, like this T72BM is doing what I say happens for a lot of tanks in Era 3 when they're playing, is that they just see a tank, they go straight in and focus on that tank. They may be getting shot a lot by other tanks, but they're just focusing the hell out of that one tank in front of them. And the M60AX really does not do well when a tank starts to do that to you. But at the minute, we're not the focus of these attentions, so we're pushing as hard as we can to just keep firing. You see what we're doing? It's just constantly changing the targets, keep firing as much as we can, because that's just... it goes just that quickly. At the minute, it's a really awkward situation. That one RBRT misses somehow. When I see the sides of Leopard 2A5s, I do think, especially from shooting at the back end, set on fire. Come on, fire. Please set on fire. Because those things light up like mad. The 2A5, though, finally starts to turn around to shoot at me. And that's because the 3 heavy tanks that were with me have gone. They've gone from attacking this middle area, so it's now I am the only one on this side. I haven't quite realised it at this point that I'm the only one attacking from this side of the hill. So the moment that the enemy team starts to realise it, there's the fire on the 2A5, I'm probably going to go down here. And it's like, okay, here we go. The 2A5 is coming after me, and I realise, oh no, I'm alone. He slams me with the ram because he's a lot heavier than I am, so he does a lot more damage. And face-hugging me, I can't really do much to a 2A5. I'm in a bit of an awkward position as well because of the rocks. He slaps a shot into us, and good old Mosh Pity and his M1A1 ends up finishes us off because we just hadn't got anyone covering our asses there. And unfortunately, we ended up finishing with the loss, but we finished the game with 1166 base XP. 13,322 damage, which is the highest damage I've done in this tank. A really nice damage game for the tank. But like I say, it was basically with the DPM and the gun, we were just keeping firing as much as we could, as quick as we could, keeping our targets focused as soon as we got the shots in. And then, like what happens a lot in this tank, as soon as someone decided, no, I don't like this tank being here, and they just charged us, we were doomed. Like, we just couldn't, like that 2A5 or that Leopard 2 or whatever it was that charged us, we couldn't do anything to that guy the moment he charged us, because he was going to pen us every time, out DPM us every time, and our armour doesn't hold up at all to him. Unfortunately. It is what it is. So we're on to the third and final game, and we are on Dragon's Ridge, a map that I test in World War II. I just absolutely hate it. And in Cold War, yeah, it's a little bit better because you can see the campers a little bit more, and generally it plays out a lot different in Cold War II. So it is that what it is. In World War II, it's just a really stale map for me, and I hate the divide in the map where a lot of the time the team will end up going... If a lot of your team go down the 8-9 line, from our spawn that we're in now, for example, a lot of the team will go down the 8-9 line, or they'll just sit at G7 and not move. And then if you come here, you end up getting shot by everyone. Their team seems to just YOLO over the 4-5 ridge that we're sat next to and don't get punished for it whatsoever. Speaking of YOLOing over the ridge, the MBT-70 comes straight after, I think it's Lee with me, and we're just going to try and put some shots into that guy. Speaking of Era 3 premiums, the MBT-70 is a tank that I do have a video on the channel for, and while it's not, again, the most competitive tank in the universe, it has something going for it in the fact that its speed is great, and it has a 152mm gun, which lets you overmatch things, hit very hard, and you get some great module damage off with it anyway as well. And to be honest, as much as that isn't as competitive, I'd say, as probably this tank is in terms of competitiveness, it just has some great memes in store for it, and it can be a hell of a lot of fun to play, as opposed to this tank, which is a bit just cookie cutter, right? It's just a bit, it's alright, but there's a lot of games where you can't really do much. You tend to get focused out and die really easily, and there's no real true fun elements about it, like the MBT-70, where it's got that high alpha, it's got that sort of niche. This tank just sort of sits here going, hi, I've got really good DPM, really good mobility, and sort of troll armor, but pretty much every other tank in the era has that as well. So yeah, there's not too much. And it's why I'd say the MBT-70's got interesting things going for it, whereas this tank doesn't really, except for the fact that it's got great penetration. That's it. I don't know, I'm just not the biggest fan of this tank, to be honest. So, yeah. Dragon's Ridge, anyway. Dragon's Ridge goes generally better. Tangents. Dragon's Ridge generally goes better on Cold War for these positions that you can take, because at E4, like I say, you can catch out anyone that's crossing the 1-2 easily enough, and then you can fight on these corners. And like I say, with True Vision, you don't have anyone that can hide in plain sight, and you can just spot them out and shoot them. And also because of the way the games go really quickly as well in Era 3 and in Cold War in general, because they are really quick, you can pump out the damage and win the flank really fast as well. So far we're at 6.5k damage for 1200 resistance, made that 7k damage, and we're just trying to keep pumping shots into this TCM AGS, because he's got a big autoloader, and while he doesn't fire very quickly with that autoloader, we just want to get rid of it. Now the Type 89 is coming after us, and it's like, hello Mr. Type 89, just let me keep popping shots into you. Because as you've seen in this game, the tanks that we're actually facing are pretty squishy. They're pretty easy to pen, which is great for us, and we're just going to keep pumping the shots in. And this is what I mean by the tanks situationally can be pretty nice, but at the same time there's lots of games where you sit there going, there's not much I can do, because in this game, there's especially a lot of the tanks, except for a Challenger 2, so for a lot of the tanks that we've been facing, most of the time they've either been side on and we actually get good shots at them, or they've been really squishy tanks like the Type 89 and and the TCM AGS, and we can actually get good damage off on them. If you end up in a lobby that is full of Challenger 2s, 2A5s, M1A2s, that's where you really struggle, because that's where your penetration is sort of good enough to pen a lot of them in certain spots, but your DPM, mobility, and armor compared to all of them is moot point, because they all have exactly that. But, like I say, they do have some areas that are weak spots. So, like, if you shoot the 2A4 and 2A5 in the side and aim for the back end, generally, you can set them on fire a lot. If you shoot the M1A2, M1A1 as well on the upper plate below its gun, you can actually overmatch its upper plate and pen it. But that's what I mean, because the armor on that tank is infallible, except for that spot on the upper plate where you can overmatch it, and you have to aim to hit it. Whereas the M1A2 will just go, hello, RBRT, hit and pen you every time. So we're at 10k damage nearly so far, 2.5k assistance. I want to get a little bit more damage. The M1A2 down here just gets absolutely obliterated, and we know where the final tank was. It was behind us, so we're just trying to swivel to get there so we can get a few more shots into this Challenger 2. He loses a load of hit points there. He must have got 80 GM'd. We get one shot into his side, and we get a second in to finish him off 36 damage, and finish the game with 10.5k damage and 2.5k assistance. And we finish the game with the victory. 6 kills, 10.5k assistance, 10.5k damage, sorry, 2.5k assistance. The Ace Tanker, 1960 base XP. A really nice game for the M60AX. Kind of wish there was medals in Cold War, because that would have been a top gun and that would have been pretty cool, but it is what it is. Finished the game with a nice total for the M60AX. A tank that I think is just a little bit underwhelming, to be honest, and it doesn't really have a niche. It just kind of does what every other tank in the era does, but every other tank in the era kind of does it better. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.